then 1 a.m. in the morning. And we're ready to start. And so, yes, we moved it to Friday. All right, Chess Wizard is our first chatter. And we are doing our class tonight, just in case you guys didn't remember. And there's Ratchet. Yes, man. So we have in the house, Keith is our only student online so far. Others may join us. And so if you hear other voices, it's not things in your head. You're listening to my in real life students in the class. So they get to participate and watch the language, of course, but they get to participate. It's their class. I will be focusing on them for the next hour and a half. And hopefully Chess Wizard and Ratchet can shout out to anybody that needs to be shouted out to and go from there. Thank you. It's a new one. I got it for Christmas. I got it for Christmas. All right. He's complimenting me on my shirt, Keith. It's a new superhero shirt. But all right. So we've talked about the magic position. And let me just reiterate. We are starting at the end. We're beginning at the end game. The end game is especially important for you to understand because it is the essence of what you're shooting for in chess is getting that pawn down, becoming a queen, and checkmating. Now, a lot of beginners don't ever even get to the middle game, much less the end game. So you might be asking yourself, what are these things I'm talking about? Well, there are 3 different phases to every chess game. There's an opening phase, and we consider that the first 10 to 12 moves, depending on how well you open your game. And it's when you're trying to get your pieces out into the board and develop your pieces. Great, Ratchet. And then the middle game is after we finish development, when we start looking for plans and ways to attack and deal with the situations on the board. And many, many, many times you might win the game in the middle game with a great checkmate or a sacrifice that leads to a checkmate. And then there is the end game. When you get to the end game, most of your heavy pieces are either gone. The queens are usually off the board, but they don't have to be. It's when you've pretty much gotten to a point where you're looking to queen a pawn probably to finish the game off to win the game. So the end game is kind of a fluid definition. I've actually heard at least one strong player say, oh, as soon as the queens are off the board, you're into an endgame. I totally disagree with that. You can have the queens on the board and be in an endgame all the way at the end. You can have the queens off the board and not be in an endgame. And a simple example of that is an opening where you trade the queens on move 3. Well, I don't think you're in the end game. You haven't even finished your opening. You haven't even finished developing your pieces. I don't consider that you're in an end game. I consider that you're in an opening still until you develop your pieces, and then you get to the middle game, queens or no queens. All right, so this is our magic position, and we've talked about the magic position. It doesn't matter who moves first, white wins. If white moves first, black can move here, we get to move here, and then we get to move here without check, which means white has to move, black has to move out of the way, white gets to take the square, and then we get to queen the pawn. And then it's right, this should be simple, but we've learned that our beginners don't always even know how to checkmate efficiently or checkmate without stalemating with the queen. So just so you know. And that could have been made into a rook. And with a rook, it's a lot harder to stalemate. And it's almost as easy to checkmate. So just a concept for you guys. If you're ever worried about stalemating, when this is all you have on the board, you might want to go with the rook and just make it simpler on yourself. And the only rule there is you have to make sure that if he attacks your rook, that you don't let him take it. You have to run the rook away and wait till he gets to it again. But we've gone over that. We've talked about the muggle position, which in this one, if it's black to move, he's going to draw. And if it's white to move, he's going to draw. So you're gonna have a drawn game in this position. We've talked about the wrong bishop, that you cannot, this is still going to be a draw because you can't get the king out of here, that you need the bishop to be of the same color so that you can check and kick that king out at the right time and win the game. All right, so we've done all those things, but there's a lot more. A lot more. And we've talked about, the first thing I want to review for you is the concept of the square. So Keith, can I queen this pawn, right? This is my A pawn. I'm going this way. Can I queen that pawn without the help of my king, or do I need to bring my king over to try to help usher that pawn down?
You're gonna need your king's help because you have 5 squares to go. Well, 6 squares, and also 6 squares.
Okay, so you're
Yeah.
considering that I can't get down here before this king gets here. So how do
Well,
I
I made a huge mistake. He can move
two on
two.
the first
The pawn
one?
can move. The pawn can move two,
Okay,
and
so
he can
let's
make
talk
it
about
there.
that. The easy way, rather than, and you'll see beginners do this, they'll count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 to queen, like you said, and they'll count their king and go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I can get here before, and remember, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 gets me here also, right? So I can get here before he can queen. Yeah, I'm good. And rather than doing this counting, rather than doing it counting, the easy way to do it is to see what happens when I push this pawn. Can I step into this box? And what you're looking for is black, right? Where is it? I'm looking for, oh, okay. I'm already on this square. So here's the big square. And then here is the next big square that I want to get to. Can I step into that box, into that square? It's got to be a square, by the way. It's got to be a square. Can I step into the square? And yes, I can step into the square. And if I can step into the square, that means I can catch the pawn. And there you go, I caught the pawn. But, as you just noted, you unfortunately get to move 2 squares on your first move as the pawn. And now this is the square, as you see drawn. This is the square you have to be able to step into. And unfortunately, the king can only move 1 square at a time. He cannot step into that square. So no, he cannot. The black king cannot catch the white pawn. White does not need the king to support. All right? But the way you can do that, Keith, rather than counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, which of course this is a trick question because you got to remember you can move 2, but just understanding that, can I jump into this square? And if I can step into that square, then I can catch the pawn. So that means if my king is way over here, right, and you do this, can I catch the pawn from here? Yes, because I can step into that square. And so if I'm here and you go here, then I can go here. I can go here. I can go here. And I can catch the pawn. So with your king, say here, let's say we go back, and let's say your king is here, right? Can you catch this pawn? Yes. If it's black to move, I need to move here or here, right? Or I guess I don't have to, but I definitely don't want to go this way, right? I don't want to go this way because I got to be able to step into this square right here. So I need to go here or here. If I go to one of these squares, after he moves here, I will not be able to step into the square. So understanding the concept of the square tells you that if your king were here right now, you could say, what is black's move to survive? It's to move here or here, not here, here, or here. So he has to move to one of these 2 squares so that the next move he could step into the square. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, cool. All right. So I like that one. We might even have to make this into a study of its own, right? We might have to create a new page for this one with the king here and say, black to move. What does black do? And, they might be wise and just start chasing after the pawn, right? That's logical anyway. Okay, so that's the concept of the square, though. You want to be able to step into the square. All right, Keith. Here is an end game, and it is white to move. I need you to tell me what the result is going to be.
Okay. Let me give me a second here to think. I believe white can win.
White can win. Okay, and how?
Okay.
Can you see the
Let
whole?
me choose.
Can you see the whole thing?
I would march the pawn down. With the king's help. So I would move the king first.
Okay, to e5.
Right there, yep.
Okay, and what would black do?
Black would probably, yeah. Okay. Then I would move my pawn. Move my pawn.
Okay, so without me doing it though, what's going to happen?
I'm gonna get there first with the opportunity to queen.
Okay, and then what? Is that a draw or a win?
That's going to be a win because he's gonna get down there. I'm gonna put him in check and then move my queen to take his pawn.
His pawn won't be a pawn anymore.
Then I would just move my queen right in front of my king and have checkmate.
Is that checkmate?
Oh, is it? Let me see. 1, 2, 3, 4. No, it's not. Okay. That's gonna be a draw. Oh man. Wait. I can move my queen over one. Yeah, I would move it to what is that? To the black square.
You can do it.
Oh, I can do it.
Yeah.
Okay, let me see. Where Lichess? Okay, let me see here. Okay, let me see here.
You have to be in learning endgames. There you go.
Now I got him.
All right. So, very good. But you go ahead and play white. I'll play black. Go ahead. Yay.
Okay.
Oh, wait. Maybe I wasn't supposed to do that. Maybe I was supposed to do that. Not that I think it matters, right? Now you could just come here and win it.
Yes.
Excellent. So the answer to the question on this one is what happens with white to move is that white wins. Agreed?
Agreed.
All right. So white wins in this one. What happens in this game? And it's black to move.
Okay. This game and it's black to move. Oh, that's interesting. We're backed up in the corner there. Definitely not the magic position.
No, not the magic position.
I think that I could get away with. I'm gonna just go. Can I move it?
Sure. But I want you to explain to me what's going to happen. You should be able to.
Okay.
I want to know if you could see the future. Can you predict what's going to happen?
I'm gonna say that I think I can win. White.
White can win? Okay. So I will play black, you play white.
Wait a second here. I thought I was going first.
White didn't get to go first, no. Black does.
Opposition. that again. Oh, he's gonna get in there. And he's got him.
That's a draw, right?
Yeah, it's a draw.
So so just so you know, this is black to move. White doesn't. This wouldn't be the magic position because it's a rook pawn. We know that, right?
Yes.
Right. So even if the black king were here, this would be a draw because it's a rook pawn. So can black get to here before white can stop him? And black could try this, which would work also because if white moved out, I could get to the corner. But you could come here, but the concept is that I can also trap your king using opposition. By taking the opposition, I take away these 3 squares from your king. You only have 1 legal move. I can, again, take away the opposition. You still only have, well, now you have 2 legal moves, but you could pick. And we can play this game, right? I can keep you blocked in. And now it's a draw because you can't get out. So the concept of the opposition is paramount to understanding how you're going to finish a game. Now, granted, if it was white's move, easy win, he could go here or he can go here. Right? And cleaner would be to go here and then usher the pawn down, but it's black's move. So this is where, if you can imagine that white's king were here and black's pawn was here, white taking this pawn still is a draw. Right? So if I'm black and I'm defending, all I have to do is be able to get here when that king takes off my pawn and we get into this position with black to move. Make sense?
Yes.
And H8. So Busy was saying that, yes, if black is on any of these squares, he draws in this situation. Yes. So if black is on any of these squares, on the square, and it's white to move, it's a draw. But if black is here, black needs to get to any one of these squares on the next move. Now, obviously, if he could get to these squares, then he's already on this or this square, right? Or this square, or this square. Or this square, I mean. So, yes, black could be here, here, or here, and he gets to draw because he'll get either here or he'll get to at least to one of these squares, and he can force a draw. Yes, F8, yes. Make sense?
Yeah, it's got that little backwards L.
All right, all right. Let's do another critical position to understand. It's a nice one I like. It is white to move. Figure out what white's best chances are, what is white playing for, and how does white go about it. It's white to move.
Yeah,
No, Busy was, I'm sorry, one of my chat was asking me.
All right. The big picture, I think it's going to be a draw. But to play it out, white's best move would be to go to G2.
Okay, you're thinking king to G2?
Yeah.
All right, so I need you to envision in your mind the magic position. So go ahead, move your king to E2 and I'll play black.
position for black. And you don't have very many choices, Mr. Love. So you're gonna have to do that.
Yeah, and that's not even close, right? This is too easy. This is just
Yeah.
way too easy. Way too easy.
Alright.
Hey, welcome Raiders. I'm glad you can make it. We are doing a one-on-one lesson. Not one-on-one. This is actually an in real life lesson via Zoom. And our student tonight is we're working on the fourth lesson. And we're working on King and Pawn still. King and Pawn endgames, which is critical to learning. Gotta learn this, guys. This is critical to being able to play good chess. And so we want to be there. I mean, this is our goal, right?
Alright. So this is the beginning again, right?
Yep, I'm back to the beginning. So, the magic position, guys, the magic position, Keith, what we're looking for is this position, right?
Yes.
Okay, this position we know white with, doesn't matter if white moves or not, white to move or not, pawn's going this way, white wins. White wins, white wins. I mean, that's the bottom line. So, we know that black wants to have his king here and his pawn here. Right?
Yes.
But we know that if the king is here and our king is here, is that the magic position?
No.
No, it's not the magic position, right? In fact, we have, let me get to, we have a not quite magic position somewhere. I have it in another one. So yes, this would not be because the magic position has to have the king on the 6th rank. Right? The king has to be on the 6th rank and the pawn has to be behind it on the 5th rank. That's what we're shooting for the magic position. So your question is, how can I keep black from getting the king here and the pawn here? How can I do that? Ah, nice. Thanks, Busy.
Let's see here. No, it's not gonna work. There before. He'll just put me in check if I do that, and that would be a mess. So I'm thinking. See one thing I didn't try.
No, you still can try something else. So what's the bet? And this is extremely useful and important for you to learn. Okay, is that if you know that black's way to win is to get the pawn here and the king here, how can I assure that that pawn can't get here? What's the easiest way for me to assure that the pawn can't get there? Any ideas?
Move the pawn in that spot.
Yeah, you can occupy the square yourself. So go ahead and try that. Occupy the square yourself, and then what does black do?
That move was there. I can only got a real listed. Black moves there. That's That's the
Okay.
only spot I can. Yeah.
And now where do you go?
Now I go. He's gonna take the opposite. Oh, I didn't mean to hit that.
Oh, then take it back. Take it back. Just hit the back arrow, and there you go. Where should you go?
My back arrow went right out. Here.
Really? Doesn't that just lose?
Oh, damn.
Where do we want to be?
Oh, gosh. That was simple opposition.
Right. You take always. So the general rule when you're fighting against a king and a pawn is you take direct opposition or you step in front of the pawn, right? You stay in front of the pawn or take the direct opposition. That is our goal. Got it?
Yes.
All right. So now what do we do? Is it a draw or is this a win for black?
This is going to be a nice little draw.
This is a little draw. This is a big time draw, right? He can't get any way. He cannot do anything else about it. All right, so he can't do anything else but draw from this position. So the answer to the puzzle, right, is to take the square and then wait for him to take this pawn. Now, the only mistake that you can make, and I will show it to you. So go ahead. You go as white. Let's see. I hope you don't make the mistake that you could make. But you never know, so let's see what happens. You gonna move, Keith?
I'm thinking.
Don't think too hard. I don't want you to think too hard. I want you to kind of, let's say you would go here now. That would be a losing move because now who has the opposition?
Black has the opposition.
So therefore white will lose this game. So the only mistake that you can make is going here before the king takes the pawn. Otherwise, you could stay on any of these squares that you can get to and wait. And when the king takes the pawn, if you then step into this square, you have a draw. And right now, because of the way the game is set up, with this pawn being closer than your pawn, actually black's best hope is for a draw. I mean, white's best hope is for a draw. Sorry. White's best hope is for a draw. Okay?
Okay.
So, and the way you can force the draw is to steal the square away from black. This is imagine you guys are in an endgame and you got to this point. And maybe, you just took a piece or whatever. You're at this point and it's white to move. And you have one way to draw it and the rest lose it. And this is the beauty of endgames to me. I love endgames because they are simple but at the same time extremely difficult. So it's simple because white has one move, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 moves white can make. 6 moves white can make. And there's only one right move. Every other move loses for white. Isn't that beautiful? You could draw with one move and every other move loses. And so I find that enjoyable. To me it's a beautiful part of the game that you have so few choices, but only one of them is the right choice. Everything else loses. Now, you could make a bad move, and black could make another bad move on top of it, right? Black can still make a bad move and allow you in, right? But now you're there, so you're in trouble. So what do you have to do? You had to do this. But now you can't get in front of the king still. So that's a really bad choice, right? This one's really bad. But let's say you were to go here and black doesn't make the best move. You still have time. You still have time to get the draw. So black has to know what he's doing. And what he has to do is lock this pawn in and then come after this one. And then but he still has to play it well, right? Because what happens if he comes right after your pawn? Right? If he comes right after your pawn, guess what? How can he protect his pawn now? He can no longer protect his pawn, and he loses this game. So with this move, even with the correct pawn move, there's still a chance he can lose this game, right? He can lose the game. So it's not simple. It's not easy. You still got to find the right moves. But yeah. All right. So king here. That's fine. And if you notice, we played this, right? This is what happened in our game. And then you went after the pawn, and that's when I said, okay, now I'll come after your pawn. You can't go here. And any other square you go to, you lose the pawn, and I'm in the magic position even better because your king isn't even here. But that's a nice try, right? If you make the mistake of not pushing your pawn, and he pushes, and you step away, if he immediately comes after your pawn, he actually loses. He actually loses. And this might be what you might think, why you can do this and not push your pawn, because you think I have a chance to win. And in theory, you have a chance to win, but only if black makes a mistake. If black plays it correctly, he wins because you allowed this. Well, if you do this, it doesn't matter what black does. Again, as long as I'm not sitting here when black takes here, then it's a draw. So I can force the draw. I can't force the draw if I allow him to push this pawn. Black can force the win, or white can force a draw right now. But it's not as simple as just saying, yeah, well, black can't say you should resign. Black cannot say you should resign because you still have game. You still have opportunities to make this work. So one we saw is if you go here, if black makes this mistake, black loses. So what else could you try? Let's say you go here. Where does black go to win this game? Ah, very nice. Very nice. Because now where does white go, right?
Exactly. We got him. We don't have the opposition, but we took those 3 squares away. Yes, right.
So where could you go now?
I'm looking at it here. Could do that, but then he's got that, and that. That doesn't help. So painful.
Okay. I mean, you could play that because, fortunately for you, you have time, but you gave him the opposition, remember?
Yeah, oh yeah, that's right.
But you don't need to. You can go after the pawn. So what does white do now?
Oh, that's right. Why didn't I think of that?
I don't know. If he does the opposition, you just take. Right? Watch. And you say, white has the opposition, but what is this called?
The magic position.
Magic position. It doesn't matter whose move it is. White would still lose. So allowing you to take the pawn doesn't work. Very good. So let's say you come here to still protect the pawn. And then black gets to keep attacking the pawn because can you protect it anymore?
No, you can't.
No, you got to step away. And once you step away, game over, right? And again, if you go here and say, I get the opposition, but it's too late. This still loses because we're on the 6th rank. and we're going to be able to push the pawn and win. Got it?
Yes.
All right, so you feel you understand this?
I do.
All right, because it doesn't matter. White to move, he's trying to draw. There's only one correct move, and it's this one. But if he doesn't do that and he makes a mistake, you don't give up, right? I mean, you still might make it. You still might find a way. What do you do here?
Let me see here. What do I do here? Okay. He's got to take the opposition. Wait a second. I could totally do that. I think I could take the opposition, right?
Can you?
I'm what?
Try.
You said I'm white, right?
You could try. No, you're black.
Oh, I'm black. I'm sorry.
You're trying to win the game. Black. I said black should win the game, right? So let's go back. I said that any of these moves loses for white. The only drawing move is this one. So I said let's test the theory, right? So white went here. I gave you black's move because we know black needs to have this pawn here. If white gets to push this pawn, it's a draw. I cannot. So think of it the opposite way. If it was black to move, besides that I could come and attack the pawn. If it's black to move, the quickest way to win is to push this pawn. I know I win the game if this pawn is on the 5th rank, because I'm going to get this pawn eventually because of opposition. Right?
Yes.
All right. So let's say you come here. I get to occupy, and now it's white's turn. And I said, what happens if white goes here? How do you win the game? Nice, Busy. I'll have to look those up. Yeah, I don't use them that way, but I'll have to look them up, my friend. I'll look them up and be able to add that to my lessons. Thank you very much. So Busy's telling me there are, and I've seen it taught, but I just don't use it, but I'm going to look it up. There are things called key squares, which for me, it's hard to memorize key squares, but I will look it up, Busy, and see if I can use it. So what's wrong with this move? So in general, when we do general principles for king endgames, my general principle for you is we don't want to back up. We want to always go forward. We want to push this king around. And what you did by backing up, Keith, is you're allowing the white king to push you around. Right? We don't want to allow white to push us around. We want to push, if we're black, we want to push white around. So yes, you can come over and say, now the king, watch, because the king can't go to any of these squares. Agreed?
Yep.
So where do you want white to go?
Where do I want white to go?
Yeah, I mean, let's say he goes here. Where do you go as black? Where does black go? Yeah, takes the opposition and starts heading towards the pawn, right?
Yep.
And it's going to be over, right? It's over. So where else could white go? White could say, okay, well, I'll stay over here. And guess what? You can start squeezing him again. Because when he gets to here, you get to take the opposition again. If he goes here, you get to attack the pawn. If he protects the pawn, he can't protect it enough and you still win. So this move is, and Busy's showing us key squares, so we're going to look at key squares. But my argument for you, Keith, is by the principle of I'm not going to back away. I'm going to come at you. I can't come to any one of those squares, but I can come to this square. And if you think about the king here, think about the squares you took away from the white king. So as long as I'm taking squares away from the white king, I'm going to get to this pawn. So one key square, obviously, is I want my king to be able to take off this pawn. And I can't take off that pawn by running around behind it. Now I might be able to, but I got to be careful that I don't allow him to get my pawn. So why ever let this king get anywhere near my pawn? I don't have to. So I'm going to take away squares. All right. So Busy says the key squares in this position, which should work all the way back here, I take it, Busy, are if I can get my king on c3, d3, e3, g3, and h3. Okay. So Busy says those are all key squares for black once they're locked down. Yeah. So if I get this pawn here, right? So let's say we go here and we go here. And Busy's saying now the key squares for black's king is any of these squares. If he could get to any of those squares, he wins. I buy that. I buy that. And so the basic is, so let's do this to show you how it could be wrong, right? We're going to go here. He's going to go here. We're going to go here, and he's going to go here. All right. So right now, that king cannot get to these squares. The black king cannot get to any of those squares. And he could try to get to these squares. But the idea is that because white is fighting for these key squares, then based on what Busy's telling me, white should be able to draw this game. Maybe even win it if black fumbles. But it should be a draw because I can keep him out of, notice I can keep him out of the key squares. He can't come here. But he could try to run around to the other side.
Yeah, I was thinking that too.
So again, I got to keep him out of these squares so I can still do that, right? I can keep him out of those squares. Okay. Yes, I like squeezing the king and taking squares away. So one of the things Busy's telling us is from our beginning position that if you know these are key squares. Now, Busy, this is part that I have trouble with key squares, and I'm going to look at it because I like to learn too. You know I love to learn, so I'm always willing to learn other things. And so one of the things that I don't feel comfortable with is memorizing that these are the key squares in this position, but in a different position, maybe these are the key squares, you know? I don't know how you know which one's a key square. So in my mind, what's easier for me to think about is the magic position. If I can get my king and pawn here, so I know I need the pawn here, and then I need to get my king here. And once I get to do that, the question is, and let's say he goes here, I don't think I need to know these are key squares. I think I can say, I'm going to start pushing the king because I want to get to take the pawn. The key squares to get into the magic position. So I need a way to get to the magic position. And so Keith, this doesn't go towards the magic position, so I don't like it. If that makes sense. Yeah. Okay.
That makes total sense. I mean, you got to go with my principle. Don't go backwards here.
Don't go backwards. Go for it. Always try to be aggressive, especially with kings against kings. But also, I need to get here. And this doesn't get me towards here. And this, although it looks like I'm moving further away, right? I have to remember the king can't get to these squares. So wherever the king goes next, I get closer to the pawn. I have to go away to get closer. I have to do a little what we might call triangulation. I'm going to go here to go here. Right? Because you're already taking away these squares, but now it's your turn. There's also a concept in a thing called Zugzwang, and Zugzwang is the compulsion to move. So right now, white would love it if it was white's move again, because white would go here and take the opposition, right?
Yeah.
So black says, well, I don't want white to get the opposition. If I go here, black is compelled to move because it's his turn. And guess what? He has no good squares. He can't get to the good squares. So I've just compelled him to move away. And wherever he moves away, I start going where I want to go. So from here, I have to think of what square can I go to make it be his move, and he doesn't have a good move. Not just be his move, but I don't want him to have a good move. Because I can go here like you did, and he'd still have good moves, right? I can go to any of these, and he might still have good moves. I don't want him to have a good move. All right. How about this? Oh, this is the same one, but I do it as, this time we do it as black gets to go first. Which you should now, I mean, after all of that, you know black moves here, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So we won't spend a lot of time on this. But the two go hand in hand. Is it white to move? If it's white to move, what's the best outcome he can hope for? It's a draw. How does he make the draw? With f4. Right?
Yes.
He pushes the pawn, making the king take at some point where we could step in here. But we have to watch him. He's going to be tricksy. He's going to try to get it so that you ever step in here when he can take that pawn. If you ever step in there when he's able to take the pawn, he will do it when you're there, and then he gets to win because he will have taken the opposition. Make sense?
Yes.
All right. Hey, thanks. I would love to see it. Thank you. Thank you. And if you don't mind, I'll steal it and add it to my lessons. All right, so Keith, white to move. What do we have going on here?
All right, white. White had the black has the opposition because white has to move.
Very good.
So.
And white is going this way.
Okay.
So I'll play white. You tell me what the outcome is going to be.
The outcome will be a W, a win.
All right. Now, you won't be surprised that I disagree with you, right?
Oh, gosh. That's the corner one. Oh, yes. White went here, right? That's what you're saying.
Yes.
Right? Then black could. Black can't take that position, so he would go here, though.
Ah, very good. Very good. Going forward, right? As forward as you can get. We're trying to restrict the king. Where now?
Trying to restrict the king. The most restrictive would be here. You can't go there, can't go there, can't go there. You can only go here.
Very good. And you can work it out on your own now, right? Because what is your goal? Your goal is to get this king into the corner, remember?
Yes.
Okay, that's all you have to do is get that king into the corner. So can you do that?
Let's see. I don't think that I can get him into the corner.
You can't get your king into the corner?
I mean, the white king into the corner.
Yeah. Can you get that white king? No, you can't stop black, right? Because I can just keep taking away the opposition.
Exactly.
Good.
So even if I did that, then he has to move out of opposition. But it's
I mean, whenever your king, right? If your king ever steps away, you're in trouble. So now I can take the opposition. And this is why I gave you, if you remember, we did a position very much like what you're about to be into, right?
Yeah.
All right, so we've been in this position. And now you're forced, right? You don't even have a choice. And it's a draw.
Yep.
So if you think all the way back to here, you can imagine the king here. You have to imagine my job is to get my king here, or at least get him here as fast as I can. So with this move, we don't make moves like this, because this loses. You take the opposition, but you're behind the pawn, and now you try to come out, and guess what? My king stops your king from getting to the corner. So I've seen many, many, many beginners, when you do this, their thought is, I take the opposition, right? No. Your job is to get to the corner. So opposition is a useful tactic, a technique that you can't just say, if I get the opposition, I draw, because you're behind the pawns. Wrong place. I do want to take the opposition here, and this is indirect opposition, but I want this opposition to keep this king locked into this file, because if I can keep that king locked into that file and you get the pawn here and my king is here or here, it's a draw. Or I'm going to be able to get my king to the corner. All right, so if it's black to move, right? Now we're black, which means our pawn is going that way. White is coming this way. And this position is exactly the same position we just did, Keith. What are you hoping for, and how can you make it happen?
All right. So what I'm hoping for is which way is white going again?
White's going this way.
Okay.
But like you said, white has the opposition because it's black to move, right?
Yes.
So what's our hope? Are we trying to get a draw or win?
We're gonna try to get a win here.
Oh, are you? Okay, go ahead. As black, show me how you can get a win.
Oh yeah, he's gonna go right in the corner again. I just.
Nah, the pawn's going this way. You're black. You're defending. Black is going this way. White's gonna take. I take this, and thank you very much.
That's not good.
No, game over, right?
Yeah, game over.
All right, try again.
All right, let's try again here. Okay, so it's black, right? I'm black. Okay, so I don't want to do that. Take the long way home. Can't do that.
Yes. Now talk about. Remember, I told you want to be aggressive and go towards that king, but you
Yes.
have to know where you have to get to, right?
Mm-hmm.
So where do you go now?
Okay.
Where do you go now?
Going here.
Very good. And then what do you do now?
Beeline it down to the corner.
How? Ah, so good. You don't beeline it like going this way. You got to block the king in. Right?
Yeah, I'm just conditioned every time I get a chance to take the opposition.
Yeah, but and that was the correct play. But so very hard to find here for a beginner. Very hard to find here for a beginner is to go away from the pawns. We want to be here. We're going away from there. We're not going towards it because we can't legally. We cannot legally get closer. And here gets us trapped behind the pawns and we lose. We can't go here, here, or here. So actually our move is to go here. And if white does this, you're fine, right? You could just go back. Because this would be a draw if we do it 3 times. Not have to do this 3 times, but have the same position 3 times. And of course, if you go here and white says, oh, I'll come here and flank you, well then actually he's going to be, now he's playing for a draw. And yes, he can force a draw because the same way we just saw you can, right? This is still a draw. But one way, black has to force a draw to survive. And the other way is white makes a mistake and allow black to have the only winning chances. And white has to not make mistakes to force a draw. Make sense?
Yes.
All right. So again, the position from white's point of view, and if it's here, it's white to move. It's a draw if black plays properly. And with black to move, it's still a draw if black plays properly. And a lot of it is contingent to the fact that you have a rook pawn. If this was not a rook pawn, we'd have a different outcome. But it's a rook pawn, so all we have to do is get to the corner. All right. So Here's another one of my favorites. I love this one. I actually titled it, I love this one. It's white to move. What's the outcome and how does it happen?
Okay, it's white to move.
White to move.
Alright, white to move. He can get into the magic position, like right.
No, this is not the magic position. He has to be a whole rank further. King has to be here and the pawn has to be there.
So that's a muddle then. Okay, then we're gonna have a draw, and we gotta get white up here.
So, you have 3 moves that you can make with white.
Yeah.
And guess what I always tell you? What do I tell you? No, what I tell you though about having 3 moves or having multiple choices. In the endgame, many times there's only one right answer.
Oh, okay, yeah. He did say that, so put that there.
Yes, Busy, only one draws.
One of these draws.
What does Levy sing, Kudo?
Alright, I'm just gonna be only one of them wins. The one that I probably wouldn't do is the one I'm gonna pick.
And why do you think that one works?
Because the other two I was convinced probably worked, so I took this one because I didn't think it was gonna work. But that's not the right answer.
It's
All
not?
right, so I'm right in front of the king. All right, so that's the strategy there. I know he's either gonna move the pawn or the.
What's this called, Keith? What did you just do?
That's opposition because it's an odd number.
You took the opposition.
That's right.
Right?
Yes, I did.
All right. So if you go here, what does black do to win?
What does black do to win?
Yes.
Black would he would move his king in front of the pawn.
No. If he goes here, white takes the opposition and it's a draw.
All right, so go back.
And first of all, do you remember, because that was an earlier lesson. Guys, you could go back and watch the earlier lessons. But do you know that this is a draw? Do you realize this is a draw? Because this is not the magic position, right? He's not on the 6th and 5th rank. And white has the opposition. This is a draw.
Yeah,
We could play this all day long. This is a draw. Right? This is a draw.
Yes.
This is a draw. No matter what, right? I'm gonna not no matter what, but if I play right, it's a draw. So if black goes here, white gets the draw. So how does black move here to win? White made a mistake. Black should win.
Taking the squares away and I'm
Yes.
my guy.
Yes. And now what do you do? No!
No. Darn it. Oh, jeepers. Let me go back.
Should be pretty easy, Keith. If that's wrong, what has to be the right answer? Yes, yes. Now that's not the magic position, but you have the opposition. Right?
Yes.
Okay, if we're way back here, and my pawn is here, my king is here, and your king is here, if I have the opposition, even way back here, I win. So if I can get the opposition here, I win. Because now white has to give way, right?
Yes.
And guess what? I'm going to make it to the magic position. But I don't even have to here because now I just usher the pawn down. So how about here? How does black win?
How does black win? Okay.
How does black win here? My chat is pretty funny.
I can't really read the chat.
Yeah, I know. They asked, can they tell you stuff? And I said yes because you can't see the chat. But yeah, but they're pretty funny.
Alright, so it's gonna go. Okay.
Yeah, no. And again, we're going to get the pawn in front of the king, and that's not right. What is the magic position? Is the magic position with the pawn in front of the king or behind the king?
Behind the king.
Yeah. So if you go here, how are you going to get your king in front of the pawn? Even if you take the opposition, how are you going to get your king in front of the pawn? No, you can't. You can't push the pawn, my friend. But you could take direct opposition. You could take indirect opposition. Odd number of squares, right? And busy, I did steal this from you, and we taught it last week. That if you can create a rectangle where all the squares of the rectangle, at the corners of the rectangle, the same color, you have the opposition. I just usually count diagonally, but it helps when you're like in weird positions. So you are now in possession of the opposition. And you say, yeah, but he goes here. So you could come here, but you don't have to. Because remember, you're already flanking. You're already taking away all these squares. He's got to pretty much... Now, he could say, oh, I've got the opposition. Right? Now, you notice he has the opposition. But now you could go here. He could say, I have the opposition. You go, yeah, but I have the magic position. And this actually wins me the opposition back because it's white's move again. So yes, this move loses. But it's funny because it also loses to this one because I still have the opposition all the way over. But definitely cleaner would be to take the square in front of the pawn so that I can do this faster. But yeah, so this loses to this. This loses to this. So yes, busy. Only one move draws.
That's the one I picked.
You got it right this time. And it doesn't look right. It looks like I've got to go up and stop the pawn. I got to go up and stop the king. I've got to fight. No, actually, I need to take the opposition. I just created that nice rectangle. Well, actually, I don't think busy means that way. I'm just in a straight line and we're on the same color. If I'm on the same color, it's the opposition. I don't even have to count the squares. If I'm on the same color, it's an odd number of squares between us. Comprende? And from here, because you have the opposition, you don't have to give up the opposition. You do not have to give up the opposition. You can force a draw. And by busy's, watch this one, just for fun, busy. Because all of these corners are the same color, this is indirect opposition. And this was the one I was telling you it's hard to see because it's not a direct line, right, to count. But this is the opposition. White has the opposition. And if black goes here, you could say, I still have the opposition. And if black goes here, you could take the opposition. Notice all four corners for busy again. Right? This works too. So it's all about opposition. But the reason I love this one right here is because there's only one way for white to draw. And he's got only 3 choices. Last time you had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 choices with the pawn push. Here you only have 3 choices. And I'm willing to bet most beginners, if you were playing an endgame and you got to this point, it was white to move, they'd lose the game with one of these 2 moves.
That's a
They got 33% chance of getting it right, 66% chance of getting it wrong. So and that's the problem, right? There's two ways to get it wrong, and there's only one right. And the other problem we saw, the same thing happens right here. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 moves to make. But 1 out of 6 is right, 5 out of 6 is wrong. You have so many more chances to go wrong. So many more chances to go wrong. And we talked about, like, if you go wrong here, right, and they go here, and if I remember correctly, we said something, yeah, like you go here, black now. Black has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 moves. 7 moves. And we know that you can go wrong. This is wrong. Attacking, as Busy says, whoever attacks in this situation, when you have locked pawns and you have kings, whoever tries to attack the enemy pawn first loses the pawn. So if black attacks the white pawn first, white gets to attack second, and then black can't stay on his own pawn because of the way that pawns attack, right? So whoever attacks first loses. So black has to know, I can't attack that way. And white can say, well, I'm not going to attack that way either. But, right, you got to find a way to get there. And I think, Busy, I can attack first. I can attack first because you can't go here. I'll just take. You got to come here, and then I still win. So I don't know about the whoever attacks first loses, because I just attacked first, didn't I? So I attack first. Where does white go? White has to protect this way, doesn't he? I mean, he can't go there. The key squares again. Okay, so the rule of whoever attacks first loses is not exact here. Okay, anyway, so back to this position. So do we feel good now? We understand how to do that one. And we are here. One of my favorites because it's so simplistic, but you have to take the long distance opposition. And how do you do that? By going here. Same color square. Make sense?
Yes.
All right. All right. Let's move on. I love this one, though. That's one of my favorites. All right, how about this one? White to move.
White to move.
And white is going forward. So whoever's to move is usually you're looking from their point of view. I'm doing great. We are doing a lesson. Let me see if I've tried to load this up. There you go. That's for Raiders, though. Sorry. But yeah, I'm doing a lesson. I was going to make one for Raiders. I made one for Raiders. I was late. And then I was going to make one for... What? Do we want the pawn ahead of our king or behind our king?
Behind the king.
Why do you keep pushing that pawn? And this is... I'm asking you not to embarrass you, Keith. You know that. You're from New York.
No, I understand.
But I got to ask you. But I got to keep asking you because you keep making the same mistake. Which, of course, makes me wonder... Why does a beginner want to push that pawn so badly? Now, we are going to talk about an axiom that passed pawns, and this is considered a passed pawn, need and want to be pushed. But to queen a passed pawn, you got to be careful when you push it, right?
Yes.
Okay, so Busy says the key squares here, and Busy, this is my problem with using key squares to figure this out. It works for you, awesome. I'm going to learn it so I can see if... I'm always looking for ways to help my students. And, you know, I do it for volleyball. I coach volleyball. I do it when I coach any sport. I do it when I coach and teach chess. I'm telling Keith right now a way to get this down pat. If Keith cannot get it, if it just doesn't work for him, as a good teacher coach, I need to find another way to communicate the same information. All right? So I'm trying to figure out, how do I communicate this information to Keith? Very good, Keith. It's a start. So how can I communicate this information to Keith so that he understands? And for me, and if he could know these key squares, and I don't know how you memorize that these are the key squares versus other ones are key squares. So it's that part that I really want to teach, not memorizing the key squares in a certain position, but how are you identifying the key squares in any given position? So I like the concept of key squares. So Keith,
Yes.
our friend Busy is saying these are the key squares. If white can get his king, not the pawn, always the king, the king, the king, the king. If the king could get to one of these three key squares, he wins. But by the way, Keith, the magic position is the king on this square, right?
Yes.
And if the king is on one of these two squares, then we know we could get to the square, right? Because the king, unless his king is in the way, but that's okay because we're close enough that we're going to be able to flank and queen. So if you could get the king to the magic position or next to the magic position, we should be able to win. But that's with the pawn being behind the king, not in front of the king, right? So when he says key squares, if I have my king here, the pawn here, and your king is here, and it's a stalemate, right? If it's black to move. All right. So what I'm trying to teach you, though, is very simple, is you need to have the opposition, right? Go back to this one. Remember, what did white do to draw? He took the opposition. So now in this game, can white win, keep, get the opposition? Is there a way for white to get the opposition?
Well, you could go here and get the opposition.
Go where? Go ahead and move it. All right, is that the opposition?
That's 2, don't it?
So that's no, right? The answer is no. You have to be in the same color. This would be opposition, but that doesn't really get us closer to our goal. Agreed?
Yeah.
Okay, but so here it's a little different. Here it's a little different. Let's say you were to go here, because what do we want? We want the magic position with my king here. So if I go here, I'm still trying to get to here. If I go straight, he takes the opposition, and now I can never get there. Agreed?
Yes.
All right. So this way, I think you could see immediately doesn't work. This way, you could see immediately doesn't work. This way takes the opposition, but then he gets to start coming this way. And for you to take the opposition is here, and he's still getting where he wants to be. What's another choice? We're not going to go backwards. Yes. Yes. Now, black can take the opposition by going here. Right?
Yes.
Right? That would be the box. But then I think you can you see how easy it is for white to win at this point? You can either come up here for the magic position, or you could just slide over here and say, I'm going to start ushering this pawn down, and now I usher the pawn down, right? Well,
Yes.
actually, he gets to come here and stall you, so. But here, you could just push, because even if he goes here, you're in the magic position. So yes, very odd. You could go here, and if he comes over here, you could take the opposition, or you can immediately flank, right? Either one works. So if you take the opposition, you could push the pawn, because it doesn't matter whose move it is once you're in this magic position. You still win. White still wins. All right? And so I really like, and yes, Kudo, I agree. So understanding that the king can get to any of these squares to win, I can't force my way to here. This way, right? Now the king says, nope, you can't get to any of these squares, and you're not going to get to this square either, because if you try, I can stop you. So can I get to this square? Yeah, I can get to that square because you have no way to stop me from getting to that square. Make sense?
Yeah, and look at you usher that right on down. Look.
Yep, I can either usher the pawn, or if, depending on if he goes here, I can. Once I get into magic position, I don't have to think anymore. All right, so beautiful, right? I mean, this one's another one I really like because, and by Busy's argument is you got to know that you got to get to one of these squares. If you just try to get there, well, actually, this one works. But if you go here, or here, or here, he's going to have a chance to keep you out of these three squares. and you can't let him keep you out of these 3 squares. We need to get our king to one of them, and since you can get there quickly, let's go, right? Let's get there.
I have a question for what's her name? Busy? His
Yeah, his name is Busy. It's actually Bizarre. Anyway, yeah, Busy is what we call him.
So are these just like when you're talking about your key squares? Does that change? Like, you memorize these, or are these like particular squares that you actually want to put your king in at any given moment?
Yeah, so they're not for any given moment, obviously, because the key squares he showed us before were like an L, you said, right? There were a lot of squares.
Yeah.
So for me, the key is that I want to be in front of my pawn with the if I can get in front of my pawn with the opposition, I should win. Okay, that's the simple way I like to teach it is I need to get my king in front of my pawn with the opposition. Now the key squares, if you can get the keys, understand the key squares, it's a way to help you go, I just need to get one of these. You still, just knowing that you need to get to one of these though doesn't tell you the right move to make. It doesn't tell you that this is the right move. Now it could if you said, well, if I go here, I can get to any one of these 3 squares and black can only keep me from getting to 2 of them. Right? So if it's white to move and I say I need to get to any one of these squares, this is, to me, at that phase, your key square is this square. Because this square allows me to get to all of these squares, and black's key square would be here to keep me from getting to all of those squares. But how do you figure that out? So, not really memorized. I've invited. Yeah, I'll check out the study. I just know for a mobile pawn and for 2 locked pawns. So Busy's saying that there are rules for mobile pawns and 2 locked pawns. What the key squares are. Yes, and then he says there's corresponding squares, which I was looking at a while back, and that's just pure math that you have to memorize. That's crazy stuff. Key squares are easy to recognize. All right, yeah, I buy that, Busy. So for me, the key square is the king. The king wants to be here with the opposition, but I like the idea that if I'm here with the opposition, means that I'm going to get to one of these key squares. So this is a key square for, in my sense, key square for white right now, because if I can get here, then I can get to those squares. And black's job is to get to here, to keep me from getting to those squares. So yes, we will look at that study, and I'll probably introduce it to you next week. We'll close out king and pawn hopefully next week looking at Busy's key squares. I'll do some research on it. That helps. All right.
Very interesting.
So this one is a good one. Black to move. Like, how does black win this game with black to move? But this is more of I'd actually want you to play it out. But so here's one for you. What happens in this one with white to move?
It's going to be a draw.
It's going to be a draw with white to move? Why is that?
It's basically the king's in the rook spot right now, so the magic position is not gonna really help us here.
You don't think the magic position will help you?
Whose turn is it?
Actually, I don't care whose turn it is, but it's white's turn.
Okay.
Where do you want me to go? I think I only have one legal. I think I only have one legal square. No.
Yeah, that's it right there.
Yeah, it's not stalemate. No, it's. Oh yes. So yeah, I get to go here, and who wins?
White would win.
Oh yeah, white wins. So this is not a rook pawn. So getting your king into the rook corner doesn't help you if it's not a rook pawn. It has to be a rook pawn. And so Choo Choo. Choo Choo said here, but this is actually stalemate. So the only wrong move white can make, right? We talk about wrong moves, right? Here's a wrong move for white. He could take the opposition and realize, oops, I made a mistake, and go back. Right? He could go back. By the way, you can't take the opposition and say check, because we just take it off. So you could say, oh, I took the opposition. No, that was a mistake. Okay, he goes back. You could try here. Right? You could try here. You can go here and say, I'll try to keep you out this way. And if you make these kind of moves, you still win, actually, because you're in a family of the magic position. So yeah, if you just come here, you can he has no choice, but you know the magic position wins if you have the move or not. Doesn't matter. Agreed?
Yeah.
All right. Excellent. So that one is done. This one we're going to do next week. We're going to play this one out. And I believe this is a fun one. Yes, this is a very fun one. Okay. So let's do this one, guys. White to move. Can he draw? Can white draw? Can white win? White's going this way. Black's going this way. What's the outcome? What, Busy? Busy, white's going this way. White wins, okay. So how does white win? Because if we go this way, what happens? What happens? Actually, we don't even want to go there. We're going to go here and take the opposition. And now it's a draw, right? We've been here, right? Keith, you're an expert of this, right?
Sure am.
You see the draw?
I do.
All right. So if we run this way, we're going to run this way, and we're going to get out here. So how can white win this? Got to put your shoulder into it? I got Choo Choo says it's a win for white. You go closer to the black king. Very good. Shouldering the black king off the critical. Very good. Let's keep going. Go ahead.
But what's going that way, so that's a bad move. No, just gotta get closer.
Yeah, you have to, right?
Yeah.
So I know if I go here, I lose, right?
Mm-hmm.
I can't go there, so I'm going to go here.
Now immediately I was thinking I want to take that pawn off. But yeah, I'm going to do that.
And can I get there?
No, you cannot.
I cannot. So you shouldered him away. So as Kudo says, you shouldered me away. So now you can move here, and then you get to queen the pawn.
Woohoo!
And the way, very good, very good. So the book answer even does this, where black tries to keep with the opposition, but he's too late. He can't get there anymore. So very interesting. And the reason it's interesting is you say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, right? 5.
Yeah.
But if you, how many squares does it take if you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? I'm sorry, 1, 2, sorry, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the weirdness about chess, as far as geometry goes, because these are squares, it looks like the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. Hey, Patrick. So you think, oh, that's 5, but this is also 5. And by coming out first, I keep the king away from the drawing squares. So this is the same amount of squares to get there. And by coming here, I can shoulder, I like that, Chesscuda, I'm going to steal it. We shoulder this king away. Does that make sense?
Beautiful thing.
Yes, yes, the king can move the same by coming out here. That's the same number of squares as going in a straight line. Right? So the same thing here. I said 1, 2, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 I can attack him on, but I can also attack him 1, 2, 3, 4. Right? I don't have to go in a straight line. 1, 2, 3. Oh, sorry, too far. 1, 2, 3, 4. But I can go out here. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I don't have to go in a straight line either. And because you don't have to go in a straight line, you're going to be able to keep the king out. So again, imagine you're a beginner and you have white and you're in this situation. You're like, oh, I can almost queen my pawn. I'm just going to go over and win this pawn. And black says, yeah, white has to know to come here first. Is white going to know to do this, guys? As a beginner, yes, you will know it, Keith. You will say, I know. And why do you know? I'm going to use Busy's key squares. Black's key, what is black's key square? He needs to get his king here or here, right? When you take that pawn. I can't be here because if you take and I step here, you get away. So I need to be here or here. After you take that pawn, I need to be able to be in one of those 2 squares. If I could be in one of those 2 squares after you take the pawn, I draw. So you could say, if those are black's key squares, how can I keep black out of those squares? Well, I can come here, and then black can't get close enough, because then when I get there, you will be 1 tempo away. You'll need 1 more move, and you won't have the move. Sweet, isn't it?
It's beautiful.
It's a beautiful thing. I'm telling you, endgames are a beautiful thing. All right, so we spent all this time on king and pawn endgames. I have a lot of stuff that I could have covered today, and I still will cover at a future date. But I wanted to make sure that we covered those things for you. Let me just... Actually, I'm out of time. I also have a whole lot of endgame axioms for you. And so we have endgames. It's going to take us a few weeks to get through just even basic endgames, guys. But this is opposition. Today we really focused on the opposition and on the king and pawn situation. We are going to get into some more complex situations next week. But we will keep going. And I have a lot of information for you around pawns, Keith. Strong pawns, weak pawns, good pawns, bad pawns, and how pawns play. All right? So we'll be doing that in the future. Thank you for attending tonight.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Always happy, Keith. Always happy. And we will see you next Wednesday. Same time,
Yes.
same channel, and we will continue with the lessons.
Awesome.
All right.
Thank you so much.
We'll talk to you later.
Good night, chat group.
Keith says goodnight, all. Hopefully you could hear him. All right, Keith. You can always visit the stream if you like, but I'm going to stop the Zoom call, all right?
That's fine. I'll get out.
All right, we'll talk to you later.